All right, here we go. So in this match right here, I was attempting to do something very specific, but my opponent had an Ash Blossom. Now, usually I would say, I just use Fiendsmith Engraver as just a bait, but it's a good thing he ashed this because I was about to search for a monster that was going to be extremely overpowered. But hey, he negated it, so we're not going to see that. But instead, we are going to do some Mitsurugi plays right here. Now, me, I like to put out just Mirakumo, which is why I search for it first. And then I make all my other plays. That way, if they have to do anything, I can force them to discard a card. So, for example, they Nibiru me. I forced them to discard a card to Nibiru me. And then also, when it does get dropped on, this card will activate its search effect, which I can search for prayers. So my opponent really would do nothing. They would clear my field. They'd lose multiple bodies to do so, and then I would just summon this back on my opponent's turn, wipe the field. And also, if they did summon the Biru while that's on the field, then it would just summon back anyways and wipe the field. So one of the funniest things. That's why I just make all my other plays. So I'm going to go ahead and do my Snake Eyes plays first because Snake Eyes needs a lot of board space. So I'm just going to do Snake Eyes stuff first. We're going to go Poplar into Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh is going to summon, so activating the Poplar. And then we're going to use Original Sinful Spoils to send that Poplar. Now my opponent stayed, and I was hoping he wouldn't quit because I wanted to fully do this entire combo so you can see how broken this is. If you want to see what the full combo looks like, I got plenty of videos showcasing this deck, so you can check any of those out. And I'm going to show you what I've added to this deck. What I really wanted to do, that monster that I was talking about, I wanted to search for. I want to show y'all that after this combo is done. So we're going to, of course, go summon out Snake Eye Ash and Poplar. Then we're going to go into Promethean Princess right here. Of course, Promethean Princess is going to re-summon out the Flamberge. And this deck is so fun to play. There's so many options. There's so much you can do. And the funny thing about this deck that I've always talked about is how recurring this deck is. The new card that I added in just makes this deck like completely infinitely recurable. Like it turns, there was a point before where I was saying that Azamina can come out every single turn. You can basically make Ilya Silva every single turn, so you can get a infinite recurring Omni Negate. I was basically saying that Snake Eyes can come out every single turn. Mitsurugi can come out every single turn because of Kusanagi. You can just keep resummoning Mitsurugi monsters, adding prayers every single turn. Snake Eyes can loop itself, and you can basically use Promethean to resummon Flamberge to reset the IP Masquerena. So you can just keep looping stuff. And then, of course, Fiendsmith can just keep looping over and over and over every single turn. We got DDD Wave King High Caesar here. We got all of these different monsters. But the problem was there was like hard to recur cards in this deck. So my opponent quit. Let's see what I was playing. All right, so this is the deck that I was playing right here. This is Azamina, Mitsurugi, Snake Eyes, Fiendsmith. And like I say, this deck right here just absolutely recurs like crazy. You can basically do everything in this deck multiple times. And there are so many cards in this deck that get you so much advantage that I thought to myself, well, what if I added in something that's so broken that is almost like an instant win condition? There are so many engines, you can get so many bodies on the field. And I'll show you. Remember when I said that I try not to do certain plays with Snake Eyes because it clutters the field? Well, with this particular card, you want your field cluttered. So let's look at it. It's this card right here, Terra, Source of Destruction. Now, what this card does not affect, it does not do anything to unaffected monsters. So if you're playing against Lunalights, it's not going to deal with the Lunalight Liger Dancers. Those monsters are unaffected. It does nothing to those. if your opponents have monsters set up in the banished zone, there are some decks that can play from the banished zone. There are some fish decks that set up like banished plays, the lifeless leaf fish plays, and when you do those, like it doesn't shuffle those back. But what this card does is it's a non-negatable card. Your opponents cannot negate the special summon of this card. Well, you can negate it, but you can't negate the special summon, and it can't be responded to. So when this card comes out, basically what happens is your opponents, everything on the hand, field, graveyard, pendulum monsters, all of that go back into the deck. It is basically a hard reset for the game, and it puts the game into a state of top deck mode. The only thing that it doesn't touch is the banished zone, and we're not going to really care about that because we're going to try to use this card going first. That's the goal. Also, when you make this card, before making it, you don't want to go into any Fiendsmith plays, and there's a reason for that. Now, if you're going Fiendsmith, if you wait and hold off on Fiendsmith, this card is a light fiend, which means that this is what I was trying to do in that match. I was going to activate Fiendsmith Engraver, search for Terra, and well, Fiendsmith Engraver, search for Tract. Tract adds a light fiend monster to my deck, from my deck to the hand. Since this card is a light fiend, boom, I got the card in my hand, and then now, I mean, my opponent would know what I'm playing at that point, but I get 10 bodies onto the field, summon this out, it wipes the entire, like everything goes back to the deck basically, and then they have no cards as a resource. Could they beat this card from once I do that? Well, here's the thing. This card has no effects, but the big but. How did I search this card? How do you search this card in the deck? You can search it off of Fiendsmith Engraver. You can search this card off of your you can search it off of Fiendsmith Engraver. You can search it off of Tract, right? So if you have those two cards, Engraver search Tract, Tract search this. But what does that mean? That means that this card is capable of making your Fiendsmith engine, because it says right here, Fiendsmith Requiem can be made with one light fiend monster. So you literally just go from that into this Fiendsmith Requiem, and then you make full Fiendsmith combo. And then if you go Necro Quit Princess to make 2 level 6s, then you can make DDD Wave King High Caesar, and then on your opponent's turn you could summon out the Lacrima to actually send Fiendsmith in Paradise to the graveyard. This is a combo that I always do. Basically, that gives you 2 special summon negates, and it gives you a trap in the graveyard that can send anything on the field to the graveyard. So you target something, send it to the grave. What that means is that's 3 interruptions in your opponent's on top deck mode. They have to draw a card and then try to beat a DDD Wave King High Caesar with whatever card they draw. Or you could go into Fiendsmith Desiree. And if you make Desiree, what that would do is you can negate something on the field. So when they put something onto the field, you just simply negate it. And then when they send this card to the graveyard, if they do manage to play through this, if it gets sent to the graveyard, you target 1 card on the field and then send that to the graveyard. Now, here's the problem. And it's a big problem. There are some cards that can play through this. There are some cards that can play through both of these. Not a lot. There's not a lot. But one card particularly that stands out that can play through this is, and they would have to top deck this, by the way. If they top deck X Rizio, they are the best player in the world. X Rizio, I think, is at 1. So if they top deck the 1 of X Rizio, it may be at 2, I forget, but I think it's at 1 if I'm not mistaken. If they top deck X Rizio and then they send Murological Aggregator to the graveyard to summon X Rizio, they can basically negate your Desiree or negate your DDD Wave King High Caesar, and then they can also do the X Rizio search. Now, here's the very interesting part about that. If you're playing Wave King High Caesar, right, and then they do that, what would happen is, let's say, if they top deck X Rizio, right, and then they send Murological Aggregator to the graveyard to summon X Rizio, they can basically negate your Desiree or negate your DDD Wave King High Caesar, and then they can also do the X Rizio search. Now, here's the very interesting part about that. If you're playing Wave King High Caesar, right, and then they do that, what would happen is, let's say let's say they negate Wave King High Caesar, they summon out X. X is going to search. At that point, they would need to either search for sword or ice. If they search for sword and then they special summon out, then they would add ice, right? But I guess at that point, your goal would be wait with your trap card in the graveyard if you do the Wave King High Caesar play until they go into dual drive, because they kind of have to go into dual drive. And then you send the trap, send Desiree, and then get dual drive off the field, and then you kind of win the game. Unless, well, I guess, yeah, because with Mirrorlogical Aggregator, ice is going to search sword, you're going to be negated. If you activate the trap, then they're just going to play through it because they're going to be able to summon out ice, just normal ice. So you're kind of screwed at that point, honestly. Like, that's the only scenario I can think of that they can beat you off of top deck, is through X Rizio. X Rizio is one of those cards that's like, it's custom made, if I'm being honest. It's a custom made card. It's one of the best ways to play through stuff. There are actually there's another card that can play through this stuff too. Well, not really. I guess Mitsurugi could kind of play through some stuff. Not really. No, Mitsurugi couldn't play through this because they would Fiendsmith, or not Fiendsmith, but if they top deck Habakiri, and then they go Habakiri, summon Saji, you would just let that ride, and then when they get prayers, you just negate prayers. Not prayers, ritual. You just negate ritual with you can negate ritual with High King Caesar or Desiree. Both of them negates it. Honestly, Caesar can negate the summon of Saji, so you win there too. I don't know what decks could beat that. I honestly have no idea what decks could beat this. Maybe, I don't know what Malice. I don't understand Malice plays, but my assumption would be Malice would lose too. I've played against Malice, and when they start banishing stuff, trying to special summon it back, and you got Caesar, you just negate it. So yeah, I don't know what decks, because the problem is they would only have one card. They have one option. So they don't get an infinite impermanence plus that card. They get just that one card that they top deck. And so yeah. Custom win condition that you can put together. And this deck spams bodies, by the way. This deck spams bodies. And here's the cool thing about this. If this card right here could basically make the game run forever too, because you just keep doing this over and over and over. Just keep putting them in top deck. If they have no win condition against this, you could just keep doing it to them. Like, you, it's so stupid. But beforehand, I mean, the deck was already like very recurable, but now this just puts you into fully recur everything aside from the cards that get banished from your deck. So there are scenarios where, like, the cards that can get banished naturally through combos would be like the Night Sword Serpent. If you don't attach this as Exceeds material and it doesn't go to the graveyard, it goes to the banish pile. This card right here gets banished. Boom, it's out of the game. You can't really recur this with it, so you lose that, but it won't matter. Realistically, it won't really matter. The trap cards. So Purification, if you banish this card right here, you cannot recur this with Terra. But the big but about this card right here is you can recur this card with Kusanagi. Kusanagi can add this card from the banish zone back to your hand, so infinitely recurable with that one. Fiendsmith in Paradise is probably Fiendsmith in Paradise Wanted will probably be the only cards that really can't be recurred, because this card, if it gets banished, basically, then that's when you do the send effect. So you lose that. You also can lose this card right here, the Silvera, but I think this card can be put back into the deck as well if it's banished, so that's fine. um yeah, I think the only thing that you really lose is just the trap card that matters, the trap card, and then the of course the Night Sword Serpent, and then everything else is just top deck mode for both you and your opponent. Because once you do your Fiendsmith stuff, now I mean it's back to your turn, back to their turn, back to your turn, back to their turn. But you could win at that point. I mean, if you can stop them, you got Fiendsmith for follow up, so you can literally just win on the next turn, anyways. So it doesn't matter. But I just wanted to show y'all that. I thought this was the funniest card ever. It's a very stupid card, but it's very funny, very powerful. Nobody plays this card, so if you drop this on your opponent, they would scoop instantly. They're not gonna stick around and try to. They're not gonna even wait to see what they're top decking. I can guarantee they're not gonna stick around to see what they're gonna top deck. I can guarantee the second this card comes out and everything goes back into the hand, and then they watch you start trying to. If they watch to see what's gonna happen after this card, and then they see you start going into Fiendsmith, they're out. They're gonna be like, yeah, I'm out. Why would they stay? Like, bro, they're not beating this unless they're playing, like, unless they know for sure. Yeah, I got X Ryziel in my deck. Potentially, I could top deck X Ryziel 1 of 40 or one of 60. However many, man. Bro, this is so funny. I'm gonna try to get some gameplay of this card, but if I'm being honest, that might be a real tough one because, like, the way this card puts 10 bodies out onto the field, or not onto the field, but the way this card gets you to 10 cards, that is just winning by itself. So doing it is just kind of like spitting in your opponent's face. Literally, they cannot break this. When you get all these bodies onto the field, like, they can't break that board. They lose anyways. But then to slap terror on top of it, it's just like spitting in their face and saying, here, I'll give you a chance, but it's top deck mode against my interruptions. So super funny, super funny. Or you could just hold it and use it for follow up if you wanted to. Do whatever. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But yeah, catch y'all on the next one. Peace.